Hey everyone. Last time we were taking a look at the Italian Renaissance and focusing on sculpture, and we examined the works of Donatello, who is the main influence that brings the ideas of Roman sculpture and back to Florence with him when he returns with his mentor Brunelleschi. And I wanted to kind of finish off with just a few other artists coming up, out of the early Renaissance and examine some of their ideas. If we take a look at Luca della Robbia, his Madonna Child, we've seen this motif before, this idea of Madonna with baby Jesus sitting on a lap and sitting on a throne, right, to encase this idea of the royalty of baby Jesus and Mary within Christendom, right? We see that with Robbia and his ability to capture this specific scene. But some of the differences that we see starting to emerge, kind of the fundamental principles of the Renaissance, is focusing more on realism and form. And so we see the figures here. Baby Jesus looks much more realistic. Mary's face looks more in proportion and with her neck, and so the jawline looks much more realistic, to focus more on the physical forms of the world around us, to emulate the works that God has created, that were created in His image, and so the divine looks much like what we look like. And then he encases them within two Greco-Roman columns, right? The idea that that these influences, these architectural elements, are coming back, and then there's of course, the arch that kind of encases them, and so bringing back the ideas of ancient Greek and Roman architecture and sculptures into the Renaissance. I want to take a look at another major artist of the early Italian Renaissance, and that's Davide Verrocchio. This particular image is what he's mainly known for. This used to be on the outside of the Or San Michele, but it was brought indoors, so it's currently inside. But here we see the blending of classical forms with Christian images, the idea of the contrapposto stance. As Thomas, it takes a look at the spear wounds in the sides of Jesus, and Jesus kind of holding his garment out just a little bit to reveal his spear wounds, and kind of also extending his hand as he preaches the world, and having the halo above his head to demonstrate his divinity within Christendom. And then we see him also standing with that contrapposto stance, where his right foot is slightly elevated and bending the knee. It gives that curve of the flowing garment, which is echoed by Thomas. But what we see here is, again, he's influenced by the ideas that Donatello, going down and being inspired by the ancient Roman images and bringing them back and influencing his particular style. What we see on the left-hand side is where it used to be, but they've now have a replica, copy in its place. I wanted to just kind of return to where we began. We began with a competition for the baptistry doors, and we're going to return to this to take a look at one of the panels for this completed design. So just to return to Ghiberti, this is his Jacob and Esau. This is the scene is over several moments that come from Genesis chapter 25. At the top right, you will see Rebecca receiving word from an angel, receiving inspiration that she is going to be pregnant with two children that are going to war within her womb, and she's going to carry two nations that are going to be in direct conflict, or the descendants are going to be in direct conflict. And so this is her kind of receiving that divine call, but also it's kind of a weighty kind of call to receive. At the very center, this is her giving birth to the two children, and then also at the center, you see Esau going to Isaac for instructions on hunting. And then over here you see Jacob and Esau. This is where Esau sells his birthright for for some portage, and then on the front right, this is where Rebekah presents Jacob to receive. She deceives the father in order to present Jacob to receive the birthright, and then this is Jacob going off into the wilderness. But what we mainly see, even though we kind of started with the competition between Ghiberti and Brunelleschi, we see the values that Brunelleschi takes back from Rome coming to influence this new emerging style in Florence. And we see artists that are inspired by these values that have never been, or they've been largely forgotten. And so we see a return to that. Here we see the emphasis on the Corinthian columns in the background and the arches that give us the homage to the Roman architecture. So bringing these architectural and sculptural elements to the Renaissance to really start this rebirth, a rebirth of culture. And we're going to take a look at next week how these the ideas that start to emerge. We really haven't seen any reemergence of mythology, but we're going to see artists starting to say we don't have to simply focus on Christian themes. We can also explore other ideas, other stories, and represent them and find value in them, because they too can be teaching tools, and we can use art to be able to teach their lessons too. And so what we've examined within sculpture is how we focus on these Christian themes to teach people how to behave, what does faith look like, what does devotion look like, what does bravery look like. Here we see what is, the idea of faith look like in Jacob as he remains true to his covenants and true to his principles. And we see the juxtaposition with that with Esau, who does not, and he is willingly selling them. And so they're using art as an instruction for how to become better Christians and how to become better people.